Okay, so we need to talk about private procurement. Phone pouches, security huts, bike sheds. Bike shed is actually illustrative of what goes on. So €336,000 of public money spent on a shed for 18 bikes. Now, a lot of media commentary has said this is what happens when the state is in charge of a project. This is what happens when the public sector is involved with a project. But the Office of Public Works didn't build the bike shed. The Office of Public Works doesn't do direct labour in that way. They contracted out for the bike shed. They outsourced the work. And the contract was given to a private company. In this case, the company was Sinn Facilities Management. An example of a private company profiting from public monies. I would be interested to know the value of the contracts that Sinn has had with the Office of Public Works in recent years. I'd be interested to know the value of the contracts that they've had from public contracts across the public sector. I'd also be interested to know who signed off on that project from the Office of Public Works. Now, to stand back from that particular example and try and look at big picture. 1990s, 21st century, first 20 years of the age of neoliberalism, of privatisation and deregulation. And throughout the OECD, it's reckoned that now between 15 and 45%, varying from country to country, of public expenditure now goes on private procurement, contracting out to private companies. And invariably, costs overrun because these are for-profit outfits. I mean, I could go on for quite some time, but I'll mention Metro North, the Cork Event Centre, modular homes, the National Treatment Purchase Fund, nursing homes, and the public monies that are paid to private nursing homes, and the way that councils outsource the works in the parks, the works on roads, the works in housing maintenance, and so on. Now, the example of all examples in this state in recent times is what's happened with the National Children's Hospital. Current estimate, €2.2 billion. Now, the committee that is in charge of overseeing the work on behalf of the state for the Children's Hospital made a complaint that the private contractor, BAM, were attempting to, I think the quote they had was, extract every penny from the state, from the taxpayer, on this project. And I think they're right. But I think they're wrong to be surprised. That is what big corporations do. That's what they're there for. And that's why we need to change from private procurement so that the public sector can perform public services on a not-for-profit basis. In this instance, we need the establishment of a state construction company, not just for building major public projects like National Children's Hospital, but also to have a laser focus on the delivery of social and affordable housing, as I say, on a not-for-profit basis. I'll give an example from Cork. People might think the example that I'm about to give is the Cork Event Centre, where we have BAM again, Live Nation are also part of the picture there. The estimated cost for the state originally was 20 million. I was actually at the meeting of Cork City Council back in the day that supported the proposal with 20 million of public funds. I raised issues on the night myself that it would be far cheaper and faster if it was done as a public project. Public costs there are expected now to rise to close to 100 million. We're still waiting for information from the Minister's government as to what's the story and the latest news in relation to that. But I'm going to give another example from Cork, which is the question of the design, build, operate of the new Lee Road Waterworks, given to a private company. The amount of monies handed to that private company for the design, build, operate was €40 million. And people might think that that would be money well spent if it resulted in an improvement in water services in the city. But it's done anything but. It's done anything but. The chemicals that were put into the water, which are chemicals that are put into the water in many countries around the world, many cities around the world, but when they interacted with pipes below the ground, which in some cases were 100 years old, resulted in sediment on the inside of the pipes being stripped from the inside of the pipes, and brown and orange discoloured water coming from people's taps. An example of private procurement and large sum of money given to a private company, which resulted not in a better water service, but a far worse water service, and a real social problem now in Cork City, and people having to deal with this situation. I've spoken on it here many times. I won't go into further detail tonight. Nearly have studied the experience of outsourcing in the state and have found that there are real costs for the public. Real costs in terms of higher costs than if it was done by the public sector in terms of the profit margins that are built in. Environmental costs when corners are cut in the interest of profit. Legal costs when the state has to go legal to reclaim or to enforce contracts, as is very much looming at the National Children's Hospital, but also social costs in terms of the treatment of employees, lower wages in general, less job security in general, lower conditions in general in terms of pensions, maternity leave, sick pay, holiday arrangements, and so on. The report, the decision to contract out, understanding the full social and economic impacts, points to 8% of these contracts going to pure profit, 20% going to higher management expenditure costs than would be the case in public sector contracts, and wages accounting for 40% as opposed to 60% on public jobs. And there's a real social cost there, as I say, in terms of lower wages, less job security, and worsening conditions. So I'll just conclude by saying that privatisation, but also the outsourcing of state contracts, which is happening internationally now on a grand scale, and happens in this country on a grand scale, is not good for society. It doesn't deliver better services. It doesn't benefit the public purse. In many cases, it results in services that are less than otherwise could and should be the case, and worse conditions for both employees and for the society. And looking at the clock, I've got 1 minute and 15 seconds left. So I'll just conclude by saying that we need a reversal of that process, and we need to have public investment for the public good in the public interest, rather than the state and the society being ripped off by private procurement. I'll leave it at that.